again.
You're welcome.
It was a very nice presentation with all the technical aspects and the moral aspects of the fear. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Really good. The first question is the saying, there's no right or wrong, just the consequences of your actions. Does it fit to your game?
I think actually more so than almost any other game, because it's a horror. So obviously the biggest repercussions of your choices, I mean there are many of them, but the biggest ones are life and death. You know, if somebody's going to live or die based on your choices. In a horror, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, if you watch a teen horror, or not teen horror, you know, kind of a slasher horror or any of those sorts of genres, where there are like 8 friends, you expect some of them to die. And in fact, some of them are so unpleasant, you want some of them to die. So the idea that when one dies that would be a bad thing is less true of a horror than it is perhaps of a romance, you know? So, when it's obviously a bad thing. But it's like so the idea that the story that you play and that it's different, and the decisions that you make will affect those life or death, you know, situations, I think is potentially a good thing. I think if you get to the end and maybe just one person is alive, that's probably a really good ending. If you get there and everyone's alive, that's a different ending. It's a bit of a lighter horror. If you get there and everybody's dead, that's a very dark horror. But they should all be good horrors. So yeah.
Do you believe that you have somewhat of a moral pattern in your game? Or, as you were saying, it's a horror, so we don't really need to expect things to happen?
No, we definitely put moral. We've got a lot of moral choices in there. We call them moral dilemmas, in fact. And we wanted to put you in a situation where you have choice A and choice B, and they're both really bad. You know, and it's like, oh God, which one am I going to choose? Because it's. You know, otherwise, if one's obviously good and one's obviously bad, everyone goes for good. So we wanted 2 difficult, really hard choices. What we didn't want to do is put our morals on it. So we wanted to put you in a moral situation, and for you as a player and for your character to be able to make that choice.
Okay. Without spoiling it, do you think your evil individual or spirit or something has a little bit of a judge inside him?
Yeah, you know what? I think there's always going to be a bit of that. I think it's difficult to kind of be. It's difficult to try and disassociate entirely from what you believe to be right and wrong when you look at these things. But we've been fairly careful not to be judgmental to the player. So. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, there's always going to be a little bit, I guess, of that. Yeah.
In the other aspect, it's always difficult to combine the classical horror mood with the need for innovative stories and plots. Did you find that easy? Did you have a good script? Did you have a good idea in mind?
Well, we did. We had we kind of worked on an idea because the game takes around 9 hours to play. We had to have a story that was going to be compelling for all that time. So what we couldn't do is just have a story that has a kind of a beginning, middle, and end, and it's like a standard story. We've got a very interwoven set of threads that kind of go through each other, and of course you then have your characters also changing depending on how that goes. So we had to make sure that every time you think you know what's going on, is maybe something else is happening. So we would change it a bit more, and change it a bit more, and it's an unrolling of a narrative that by the end you'll have a very different view of what was going on than at the beginning. You know, in Sixth Sense, the film The Sixth Sense.
Yes.
When you get to the end of that, and you go, oh God, everything like was slightly different.
Of course.
So we kind of try and do that, but we do that as we go through the game.
I found the thing with the totems, where you have a little hint of what might happen, but should or might happen depending on your actions. I found that a really great aspect, because having multiple options, you'll have probably multiple great stories. Do you think that you have a great story or some different ending?
Well, so this was a really very difficult thing. Every time we got something, we did something where in the story we thought, oh, this is awesome. We thought, well, maybe we should just not have this as an option. Maybe everybody should have this bit. but we were driven very much. Pete Samuels, the executive producer, is very careful that no one could have a bad story. Nobody could have he said, if that's really good there, we've just got to make something really good for this bit here. And really, so we were very careful not to have a kind of a weak version.
Yeah, and you did that in order to empathize with all the characters, right? Because if you had one that you probably like that ends by your actions, you should probably relate to other ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, all sorts of reasons. I mean, the whole thing about the characters as well is that with the characters, because you can change their personalities with your choices, you can have a character that starts off kind of, and as you play him, if you want to, he can get really unpleasant, or she can get really unpleasant, or you can play it and they change to a nicer character, maybe more like yourself. So you can manipulate their personalities.
And do you think that in a more technical aspect, that the innovation of the controller, that the movements are really subtle and logical, with the studies you made with Fear, do you think that it's one of your great achievements with the new generation of games?
So I think definitely there's a whole bunch of stuff with the controller. So the controller has a whole set of variations. It's one of the interesting things about games is there's the idea of momentum. Stick movement versus kind of this movement is a very different speed and stuff. So we had to kind of allow for both of those. This is much more, if you did that, that's kind of the same weight, momentum scale. The fear stuff is it's one of those things that we didn't want to allow for chance on this stuff. We wanted to make sure that when anybody played it, that they would get scared. If it didn't work with the fear, then it was probably not going to be as strong as we wanted. So I think is an innovation, and I think because of the way that the PS4 handles the graphics, handles the faces, handles the subtleties of stuff, you can get deeper inside someone's head. You can kind of lean in a bit, So I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the second thing I was going to tell you, because the amazing graphics on the expressions happens to be like an innuendo for the fear factor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it works. Having a great graphic playing, and you want to buy a game and see the new best thing, aligning that with the sense of fear, because you're used to horror movies, so you see that the expression looking for this way or that way works for your fear, right?
Yeah, completely. And we've got some. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but we've got some bits where we're really close on the characters, and they're in really bad trouble, and you can really kind of feel it. So yeah.
And for our last question. You always wanted the cinematic experience, right? Because you, as the game and when you started promoting it, you always sold it like a cinematic experience. You didn't try to tell that the game was in a certain way of the gaming. You always said that it was going to be a cinematic experience.
Yes.
You had it in mind since
Not since the very beginning. The very beginning, it was a move control game. It was first person. We're in the PS3. When we went to the PS4, from the beginning of that, we went, yes, this is going to be cinematic. It's the expectation. If you say it's going to be cinematic, the expectation means you've got to deliver on that. You can't say it's going to be cinematic and then make it a little bit sort of follow cam or a bit. It kind of needs to keep that stuff. And I think it allows for a wider audience than maybe most traditional horror games would have, because it's the same language, the same as the film language, the presentation seems very familiar. So that's definitely, it was always from the start.
Great, thank you very much.
Hey, welcome.